earthquakes and being prepared for the big shake. Today I thought we'd talk about what to do to your home to make it earthquake, well, prepared. And with me I have Jay Lewis from Terra Firm. How you doing, Jay?
Good.
You know, the big shaker, we don't want to see it, but what do we do in order to make our home more ready?
Well, there are a lot of bits and pieces that go into making a house earthquake prepared. One of the things, of course, is to make sure your gas system is secure. Should there be a break in the gas line, you can install a gas wrench out by your gas meter, put it down and out of sight so people won't play with it.
That's a good idea.
Fasten it to the meter so it's where it is when you want it. You don't want it shaking away into a bush where you can't find it.
You know, all of these things here, all the way from quake wax to different metal clamps and hold-down clips, and this looks like what I use on the workbench for an instant vise. I think what we better do is go and install some of this.
Let's do that.
All right. Ah, the hot water tank. Jay, what are you up to?
Well, we're just putting the last turns on this steel band, which connects to a strut, which fastens the tank right rigidly to the wall.
Boy, that really stabilizes it, doesn't it? There's no movement at all.
You bet. It's good and solid now. The trouble with a hot water tank, they're very heavy, about 500 pounds, and they're standing on a very narrow base, so they can tip over real easily. If they do tip over, of course, this is the gas, the natural gas that comes to the tank. If that line breaks, of course, you will release natural gas into the house. The other reason to make sure it's good and solid is that this is 40 gallons of fresh drinking water, and so it will last the average family about 2 weeks.
Wow, then that's very, very important. Jay, in this unfinished basement here, I've pulled the insulation away right next to a doorway where, typically speaking, you would find the anchor bolts bolting the home down to the foundation. And sure enough, there it is. But it's loose. Is that typical?
It's often typical. It's the last thing that the carpenter does as they're finishing the framing process, and sometimes they just forget. Sometimes they miss a nut entirely. Other times it's just not screwed down tight. So all you have to do is just screw it down with your hands as tight as you can get it, and then put a wrench on and just snug it up tight, and that'll do the job.
Now, you know, I've had carpenters come to me and say, Shell, you know, I've been building homes for years. The weight of the house, why put in those anchor bolts anyway? Sure, they're in the building code, but why put them in there?
In an earthquake situation, a house can literally jump 6 or 8 inches off its foundation, and at the same time the foundation's moving, so when it comes back down, it's not on the foundation anymore.
So if we find any anchor bolts without the nut, always get the nut and washer and put it in place before closing it up.
If they're accessible, make sure they're tight.
Now, what happens if there is no anchor bolt?
If there's no anchor bolt, there are a number of fittings and plates that you can buy on the market. Occasionally, you'll have to craft some for your particular house. These simply fit near the sill plate. They bolt into the wall, and then they spike down into the plate just to stabilize it and keep it where it should be.
Super. Jay, this cabinet here was really loose against the wall. What'd you do to strengthen that?
Well, it's in 2 pieces. So the first thing we did was attach the bottom to the top part. We used a mending plate with 4 screws on the back, so it now becomes one unit.
And what about the top?
Well, then what we did was we found the framing member, or the stud in the wall. We attached this angle bracket securely to the stud. It then comes over the top of the cabinet, and we fasten it straight into the cabinet.
Oh, so it's back in behind, which I can see here, which is a lot nicer than having that set up that way up on the wall. It just really looks obtrusive.
That's right. It's out of sight.
Right. Now, there's a lot of units here. Here's one here. It looks as though it's self-adhesive. What's that all about?
Yeah, this is in case you have a finer piece of furniture that you don't want to put holes in. What you do is you use this non-adhesive, this adhesive pad on the back, and it fastens to the top of the cabinet, and this goes back into the wall.
And this one here, this is kind of neat. Quake wax?
Quake wax.
Now, what's that?
This is a product from the museum industry.
Oh, here, I bet you this here vase away up here that's going to obviously topple down.
You're right.
And that's heavy.
They would slide off. So what you do is you take some marble-sized pieces, you put them on the bottom of this unit, and then you simply mush that back down onto the top. There you go. Now that's
firm. That's not going to go anywhere.
It can't slide off. Modern cabinets use a spring-type hinge in order to keep them closed, but that spring is not powerful enough to hold this cabinet closed in the event of an earthquake. What we do is we add a touch-type latch to the bottom part of the shelf, and then it fastens onto the door, so that as you close it, it clicks shut and won't be thrown open by the plates and the glasses hitting on the back side. In order to open it, you simply push it in and it releases, and you open with a one-handed action.
In the bedroom, window glass is something to be concerned about, especially if the window is right over the head of the bed, because if the glass was to break, it could come down and cause injury. Now, 3M has made a safety security film that's easy to squeegee on the glass, and it's only necessary to make sure the glass is clean and to get all the air bubbles out, but just follow the instructions. Some folks will have it done professionally, others will elect to do it themselves. But that keeps the glass from breaking out of the sash down, causing injury. Now, also, Venetian blinds are great to redirect glass, but unfortunately in this case they're between the glass panels, and that's not going to help matters whatsoever. So really, safety security film is something to be considered. Jay, that was really interesting. I feel a lot more secure now with the home done up with all this preparedness. And as you say, we prepare for winter, we prepare for summer, and, well, what else can you do?
Well, we should prepare for an earthquake. Think of it as a boat. It rocks and rolls, and your house may too. So make sure things won't topple, large objects. Make sure that things won't fly off from shelves and hit you.
So anything you buy, if it's going to topple, you got to fix it down somehow.
That's right.
That's great. Well, how do we get a hold of people like you?
Well, you should contact your local municipal authorities. They will tell you who's doing this kind of work in your area.
Well, listen, Jay, I want to thank you very much for coming out and giving us a rundown on the shake. Let's hope it never happens, but we're prepared.
Thanks, Shel.
You bet.